Hello, brothers and sisters. Raven here. Well, get to move ahead a little bit. But before I do, there's a little quote I want to share with you really fast. I had sort of taken note of this and said, okay, I'll get to this later because it's not much. It's just something to show you a little bit more confirmation. Here's how they view it. He goes in talking about Jesus and how he came human form and does it in a way that doesn't really define it very well. Leaves it kind of where you could take it either way depending on what you believe, what your view is. Then he says this. God did this because he wanted them to abase their flesh, to humble themselves completely, to crush their own pride. And they could only do this by abasing themselves through the honor and love they bestowed upon a plain man through whom God had manifested the fullness of his authority. Here is where I think it comes out in a clear way that should really show you they do not truly believe he is 100% man, 100% God. They see it as a 50-50. He is a man in God. Because they always capitalize him, his, he, whenever they're talking about Jesus. But here, it says, bestowed upon a plain man, through whom God had manifested the fullness of his authority. When you don't capitalize plain man, whom, that tells you they're making a distinction between that man he's in and God that's in him. This right here should show you their view of Christ is very backwards. But moving on, what I want to get into is going to be a long quote. Haven't got a whole lot to say about this. It's pretty simple, the problem. But I want to show this whole quote to show you what he's doing, how conniving he is, and how he is trying to convince you not to accept the rebukes before telling you the problem that should be rebuked. In other words, he wants you to be thinking, well, look, he's not saying this. He's not saying this at all. He's not doing the wrong thing. He's teaching properly, and makes you think that enough and then gives you the improper teaching. So let me start going through this. This was on pages 31 and 32. It says, God speaks to us through others as being not mere human words, but as they are the very words of God. Now, this could be taken a couple ways. First one is very messed up because it's trying to give what they're telling you here the authority of God, the same as the Word of God. Or what it's trying to tell you here is what they're saying isn't the important part. The important part is what is God speaking to you. And I'll show why that is not what they're saying in a bit. Then when someone whom God has sent speaks to us, we will honor his words. We will esteem those words as themselves weighty, as valuable, as of life-giving importance. Paul wrote that we should not say that we will ascend into heaven to bring Christ down, nor that we will descend into the abyss to bring Christ up from the dead. Jesus has already risen from the abyss and ascended far above all the heavens, that he might fill all things and so give gifts to men. Namely, the gifts of apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. In the very passage in Romans 10, where Paul dismisses trying to descend or ascend to find Christ, he immediately reminds us that the word is near you, even in your mouth and in your heart. That is, the word of faith through which we preach. So our salvation comes neither through the Christ in the heavens, nor through the Christ in the abyss. That is very disturbing. What he's saying, there's other Christ, there's a Christ in the heavens, and there's a Christ in the abyss. I doubt that's really his teaching, but again, terrible writing. Unless that is his teaching, and then something's wrong. But if it's not his teaching, they really need to learn how to write. But through the Christ, whose will must be done on earth as it is in heaven, the Christ speaking through the word of faith which we preach. That is, the words preached by those whom God has sent as gifts for the perfecting of the saints. True belief comes then only when we receive the preaching of those whom he has sent. Okay. This, in general, doesn't sound bad. Everything here sounds like it could be good. However, it's based on one big assumption. There at the end, when he's saying God is sent as gifts for the perfecting of the saints, and then true belief comes then only when we receive the preaching of those whom he has sent. This is all good if they are taking that the way they should be taking it, which is by the preaching that we see in the New Testament. In the book of Acts, with Paul, Peter, what he's writing in this letter, those things. But I don't believe that's what he's saying here, because of what is said in the very next sentence. Watch this. And note, I'm not going to go through all these passages that are in here because I think it's pretty simple. You can look at it yourself, and you can see where, yeah, they're using it, but they're not necessarily using it properly. So I'll leave it to you. If you want to go look at that, you can look at that. But the key is this next part, and this next part is where they don't give a reference. Here's what it says. When we recognize him in the authority coming to us through human flesh, we will value his word, honor it, esteem it, cherish it, and conform our lives to it. But when self fills our lives, no room remains for his word, and so we cannot receive it. And there it is. We recognize him in the authority coming, not that came, not that was, but coming now to us through human flesh. This teaching is about the leadership of Homestead Heritage. It's treating them as having the same authority as the words written by Paul and Peter. But not only that, but when self fills our lives, no room remains for his word. In this context, what is he getting at? Why is he saying this? Because he doesn't want you to stop and think. He wants you to listen to what he says, accept it in faith, trust him, rely on him. He is the true prophet. Don't even listen to yourself. Don't even think for yourself. Don't even pray for yourself. You have to listen to them to receive his word. God speaks to us, each of us, individually, as I've said before. We each pray to him one by one. Each of us prays individually. Not this corporate way they've come up with. Not this way that is solely by uniting in the Spirit. And it definitely is not by only listening to their words, as though they are the ones given the authority. They're the ones you are to treat as God. Blasphemy. God bless.